Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another weekly episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. As always, my name is Blake Smith, and with me are my partners in the paranormal, Miss Shelley Pruitt, Mr. Ryan Roberts. How are we doing tonight?
Fantastic, dude. I am really excited to hear what you have found about Lilith today, because I know very, very little, but I know you have gone and done a deep dive and you have
I
found
have.
everything you positively can. So I'm
You're
excited to
just
see where you went.
excited to hear about this demonic seductress. Don't lie, Ryan. We know. We know what you're
about?
really looking forward to. Shelley, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. I am in this kind of weird little place where I'm really excited for tonight's podcast, but I'm also really excited to be finished with it because then we move on to the next thing we're going to be doing, which is very exciting as well. So yeah, this is like I'm kind of going, okay, let's do this, and now.
What you're saying is you're over my topic already. I got
no,
That's
not at
so
all.
No, just kidding.
Not at all.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Not at all. Like I said, I'm in a weird place. I'm excited for this, but I also know that as soon as this is done, we move on to the next thing, which is our travel. And so it's like I'm kind of going. I'm going. We're so close now. We're so close.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. Well, then let's get into it. Tonight, we are going to be talking about Lilith. Now, before I get started, I do have to say there's many rules that we have on this podcast that we don't spend a lot of time on, and religious topics being one of them. Well, tonight we're going to break that rule. So here's your disclaimer. There's going to be certain moments throughout this episode where I'll be bringing into question key moments in biblical history. I'll be touching on Christianity, Judaism, questioning entire belief systems. I don't care what your religion, spirituality, or set of beliefs are. They are yours. They are valid. I'm not here to change that. I'm here to give you a story and expand your mind into a subject that you may have never even thought about, based on historical relics, documents, fables, that have existed for thousands of years. So I encourage you to take part in the conversation through the comments, but keep it classy, keep it clean. Please. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in.
All right.
Since we're in a month that is hot as hell, I've decided to tackle a subject that's hotter than hell and walk down the dark, desolate path of demonology. But all is not what it may seem. Depending on your background, you may or may not have heard of the diabolical female entity known as Lilith.
Oh, I thought you were going to say my name. Okay.
Well, this is a rival story, actually. We have Satan's mistress on the screen versus Lilith, which is, Queen of the Damned. So we'll see who wins out in the end.
Wait, I thought Aaliyah was Queen of the Damned.
She was, but in that one movie. Shut up, Ryan. Now, in some reports, Lilith was once known as a Sumerian agriculture and fertility goddess, but over the years, she has been demonized for being a free spirit and transformed into the modern myth of a succubus. She's been called many things: Queen of the Damned, Mother of Demons. She's even been called the notorious first wife of Adam. She is a demonic figure in Jewish folklore and appears in various forms across cultures and traditions. In tales such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, the Zohar, and the Alphabet of Ben Sira. And with over 100 names, her dark origins lie in Babylonian demonology, but she transcends across many different traditions, from Mesopotamian demons and Jewish mysticism to Christianity, and even tribal Malaysia, which I found interesting. Now, throughout time, she has birthed terms such as succubus and incubus, but at the center of this, she was simply a free spirit, wishing to control her own destiny. This would ultimately be her downfall, and as such would characterize her as a demon. She is the snake in the garden, the antitype of desired human sexuality and family life. And yes, she is woman. So with that, we're going to go all the way back at the very, very beginning. So in Mesopotamian and Judaic mythology, I'm throwing up a map so you know where we're talking about. The number of female demonic entities is rather small, but one of the most revered of those evildoers is none other than Lilith. However, if we're talking in terms of length of time, Lilith is actually older than Judaism itself, predating it approximately 600 years or possibly even earlier. Her name is thought to be derived from the term Lilitu, which translates to spirits, particularly female, in the Akkadian language spoken in the Mesopotamian region of Sumer, Babylon, Akkad, I think it's Akkad, and Assyria. So the term Lilitu is actually a vampiric succubus class of female demons mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and we're going to be getting well into that a little bit later on. Or prior to that, we have to take a look at that class of Mesopotamian spirits, deities, and demons to paint a broader picture of where Lilith's actual roots could have potentially have come from.
Okay.
So now this Mesopotamian area that I'm talking about, which is located in modern day Iraq, Kuwait, Turkey, and Syria, it had changed drastically over time into this larger kind of civilization. Nocturnal vampire-like demonic spirits known as the Lilu for masculine and Lilitu for feminine from Babylonian demonology are prevalent in society at this time. And these demons forming a triad, I'm going to be saying a lot of names, so bear with me, but explaining them as we go. Now, these demons, the Lilu and the Lilitu, forming a triad with the Ardat Lily and the Idlu Lily, they hunt and kill newborn babies and pregnant women. That is the theory. That's the mythology behind it. Now,
Okay.
Lil in all these names, Lil, can also mean wind, storm, or darkness. So these spirits are often called wind or storm demons, as well as being demons of the night. Now, sometimes these demons were identified with natural phenomena such as winds or thunderstorm, like I was just saying, but they could also represent the devastating illnesses that afflicted the populations. And unable to understand the cause of these diseases, men and women of that period viewed them as supernatural attacks or punishments from the gods and looked for ways to, cure or counteract them, so to speak. And the first Neo-Assyrian demon to appear was known as Pazuzu, king of the Lilu demons. Now, we know this figure from the famous Exorcist movie in 1993, who possesses a young girl, Reagan, through a Ouija board, striking a very, very strong resemblance to another demonic entity, the Zozo demon. Some say one and the same. But so these demons played little or no role in the myths or list of the Mesopotamian pantheon. Their domain was that of incantations, and they were mostly depicted as outlaws, although not always viewed as bad. Because, for instance, like Pazuzu's presence on amulets, it could be used to keep other harmful demons away. But perhaps the greatest of the fears, universal fear, is that harm might come to children of this time. And in Mesopotamia, this fear was embodied in the form of a very evil demon known as Lamashtu, who was thought to harm pregnant women and kill newborns, which is an extremely similar trait of Lilith herself. Now, she was a hideous creature, as you can tell by the picture. She was hurled out of heaven by her father for her wickedness. She's described as having the head of a lion, long donkey ears, straggly hair. Her human body had heavy breasts that suckled a dog and a pig, and her feet were talons, and according to the inscribed spells, her hands were nets, and her grip meant certain death.
How did you know about my last date? Who told you?
A lucky guess. A shot in the dark, my friend. A shot in the dark. Well, the one that was invoked to fight Lamashtu was none other than Pazuzu himself. But we can look to another legend, a Sumerian legend, and we can actually, with two deities, for a potential starting point for Lilith's story. Now, this Sumerian legend talks about Enlil, again, Lil, king of the gods and lord of the wind, and his wife Ninlil, who was known as the South Wind. Now, having originally lived in the skies, Enlil ultimately sexually assaults Ninlil, and as his punishment, he is sent to the underworld domain. And anger at this decision, Ninlil actually follows her husband to the underworld, where she remained by his side, vowing vengeance upon the male gender. And what's particularly important to note about this story is that when Enlil is banished to the underworld, he's actually banished to the surface of the earth because he lives in the sky. And Ninlil follows and would later give birth to children who would become the race known as man. And these two were essentially the Babylonian origin of Adam and Eve, or Adam and Lilith, again, which we'll get into here just in a second. Their expulsion is actually very comparative to the expulsion from Garden of Eden. So we see these variations of demonic female figures in these ancient civilizations that potentially build the foundation for Lilith. Now, Lilith's first appearance in writing, small as it may be, was in the Epic of Gilgamesh, written around 2000 BC. Now, the Epic of Gilgamesh is an ancient Mesopotamian odyssey recorded in the Akkadian language on 12 tablets. Now, the main character is none other than Gilgamesh himself. He's the king of the Mesopotamian city-state Uruk, and he is the absolute best-known Mesopotamian hero. Sorry, words are hard. Let me get a drink. Now, in this epic, we learn of his overwhelming power, his friendship with a man named Enkidu, and his quest for eternal life. Now,
good old Enkidu.
Yeah, good old Enkidu. Now, although from 100% certainty, I'm going to put that out there, Lilith does make her literary appearance in a poem named Gilgamesh and the Halupu Tree under an alternative name, Lilaki. Now, in this poem, words are hard. In this poem, that's such a weird word. Anyways, the devilish Lilith builds a house in the middle of a halupu tree that had been planted near the Euphrates River in the days of the creation. Now, this tree happens to be in the garden of Inanna, which is the goddess of erotic love, who's nurturing the tree with the intention of using it to build herself a throne. Ryan, this would be your favorite goddess.
What's her number?
Dude, I don't think she had a fucking number, man.
It's 1.
It's 1, yeah. She goes so far back. It's just 1. That's it. Well, Lilith is joined by a dragon who places its nest at the base of this tree, and also by an Anzu bird who places its young on the crown of the tree. And this mighty hero, Gilgamesh, he appears and he slays this dragon with his huge bronze axe. And stricken with fear, Lilith tears down her house and she flees. Now, while this Anzu bird flies to the mountains, Lilake, or Lilith, flees into the desert where the Lulitu were alleged to wander. And this sets the groundwork for several thematic recurrences throughout Lilith's historical development. It's a story of good, the goddess of Inanna, and evil, Lilake, which is repeatedly incorporated into all of these retellings of Lilith. Now, another artifact dated around this time, possibly depicting Lilith, is the Burney relief. It is a Mesopotamian terracotta plaque depicting a winged, nude goddess-like figure with birds' talons, flanked by owls, and perched upon 2 lions. Now, though there is very much debate over who the female is to be depicting, some historians point to the birds' talons, the wings, and the presence of owls as hints to the figure representing the demon Lilitu or Lilith. She's kind of known by both, Lilitu or Lilith.
And that is the depiction that I have seen when associated with her.
Yes. That's probably the most prevalent one that is associated with her. So this now, when talking about her name, Lilitu or Lilith, okay, they're kind of interchangeable back in that time. The Lilitu were categorized as a class of succubus demons, I keep saying, who wander the desert through the night seeking men to sexually prey on. And hold your tongue, Ryan. You don't want these women. You don't want these women.
No, I don't.
Because
when did you get picked?
Because in place of breast milk, these demons produce poison, some say blood, and were a high threat to pregnant women and children alike.
Oh no.
And it's and it's because of this, it's also around this time that we start to see figures of a demonic Lilith beginning to appear. Now she's starting to really kind of take form at this point. And again, big debate between scholars whether or not this prophylactic plaque that I'm about to show you could be referencing Lilith herself. Now, this plaque would have been created to prevent harm from Lilith. The plaque depicts a. What the fuck are you laughing
I'm sorry. I was like prophylactic plaque.
He got hung up on the rubber word. Yeah.
Hey, 12. That's what it is. Okay. Shut up, 12-year-old Ryan.
That's my new band name. Prophylactic plaque.
Jesus Christ. Now, this plaque depicts a sphinx cherub creature and a she-wolf below it, which appears to be devouring a child.
Okay.
It is believed by some that though 2 creatures appear, they are in fact the same demonic Lily and possibly refer to the same Lulitu of the Mesopotamians. She is also seen, dear God help us, she is also seen in prophylactic incantation bowls, also known as demon bowls, as a threat to childbirth and perhaps as a succubus. And these incantation bowls typically show a drawing of a bound Lilith in the center of the bowl. These are very interesting to me, by the way. Surrounding her is this inscription, and it's in a spiral beginning from the rim and moving towards the center. And these bowls' purpose were usually to ward off malevolent magic that others had practiced against another, or to ward off demonic and evil spirits. And the bowl's text accused the Liliths as a group now, they're calling them Liliths, of haunting people in dreams at night or visions of the day. And some of these bowls have a direct message to Lilith herself to ban her from entering the threshold of a house. One of them particularly reading, quote, "The evil Lilith who causes the hearts of men to go astray and appears in the dream of the night and in the vision of the day, who burns and casts down with nightmare, attacks and kills children, boys and girls. She is conquered and sealed away from the house and from the threshold."
So do they set them out like at the threshold to keep her from crossing, or do they read the incantation?
No, let me get to that just because right here is where I'm about to tell you what to do with it. So some of these writers of these bowls even use the language of divorce to keep a Lilith away by asking for what they called a get, which was a letter of divorce against those nightly demons that have attached themselves to humans and thus have acquired rights of cohabitation. But once made, these bowls, like the one in the picture, could be buried upside down in the yard in order to trap Lilith or the demonic spirit, which is why they're also given the name Demon Trap. Very original. I know. Give them a round of applause for that. But
I think it's funny that the letter to get rid of them is called a get.
It's called a get.
Get out of here. It makes complete sense to me. Get.
Well, in Texan, that makes complete fucking sense.
Exactly.
Everybody else is probably like, what are they saying? What? No, you get on out of here. That's it right there. Yeah.
I got my letter.
That's called a Texarcism.
I got my letter. A Texarcism. Yeah, that's it. Get on out of here. You burr across the pills, you get.
In the name of HEB. That's a Texarcism.
In the fucking name of HEB. I love you, Ryan. Jesus Christ.
That's not sacrilegious at all. That was Ryan Roberts.
Yeah, that's Ryan Roberts. Yep, absolutely. If you'd like to
what was that? Blake Smith and Shelley Pruitt? What are you talking about?
Shelley didn't say anything.
No, if you have a complaint about that, make sure that you put Ryan Roberts' name in the subject line of your email.
Bite me.
And we will forward it off to him. We will make sure of that. But Lilith's most controversial and discounted appearance is in a religious text that appears around 1400 BC with the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. Now, many are not aware, but the book of Genesis, thought to have been written by Moses, has two parts that have often been seen to counteract one another. While many know the popular story that takes place in Genesis 2, where God first makes Adam and then fashions Eve from Adam's rib, so that Adam wouldn't be lonely and would have a helper, it states, quote, "Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. Then the man said, 'This at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man.'" Now, however, Genesis 1:27 tells a little bit of a different story, and it states, quote, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them." So many point out that in Genesis 1, male and female were created by God in his own image at the same time from the same earth, a simultaneous birth of both male and female. And these two chapters, which are considered chronological inconsistencies at this point, have raised eyebrows among religious interpreters, which refuse to accept the possibility of textual flaws within the Hebrew Bible. Now, in the era of its formation, the Hebrew Bible was the deliverance of God's word through the writing of his prophets, so to speak, giving it this essence of divinity, the unquestionable authority. Now, under this assumption, many contradictions found within the narrative posed a threat to its immaculate nature. And they also pointed to the grammatical details. So in other words, what they're saying is like in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, we have God making male and female over here,
right? But
then we're one, chapter later and we're making another female.
Right.
And they're like, wait a minute, hold on. We've got what's up? But they also point to the grammatical details in the Hebrew Bible that suggest Adam's confirmation of Eve as his second wife rather than his first, which is in Genesis 2:23. He exclaims, Adam does, Zot hapam, which stands in Hebrew for this time, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And this points that with Adam's exclamation, he is happy that finally a woman is created from Adam's body. Sorry, my screen just went blank for just a second. Created from Adam's body, unlike a previous version made through alternative methods. So according to ancient interpretations of the book of Genesis, known as the Genesis Rabbah, the initial theory generated was that Eve was the successor of God's first female creation. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit. I got a few definitions to get through here with you, so bear with me. Now, the Genesis Rabbah is a religious text from Judaism's classical period, probably written between 300-500 CE, with later additions. It is a midrash. A midrash is expansive Jewish biblical explanations using a rabbinic mode of interpretation prominent in the Talmud. The Talmud is the central text of rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of Jewish religious law and Jewish theology. It is a collection of writings that has two components. The Mishnah, which is the first major written collection of the Jewish oral traditions, and the Gemara, which are further explanations that expound broadly on the Hebrew Bible. So, kind of get a little understanding where we're at on that. Well, concerning this creation narrative, the Genesis Rabbah had identified two women: Eve, the replacement, beautiful but restricted by her inferiority to Adam, and the first woman, described as being bloodied and covered with discharge. She is rejected by Adam, and she's barely expanded upon past her horrific description. Well, the legend of Lilith, being prevalent throughout the region and solidified by rabbinic discussion, was able to fill the void of this narrative, so to speak.
Okay.
So it's kind of like they have to, these rabbis are basically getting together going, hey, we've got this and we've got this and we can't figure this out. And so, hey, we know this right here. This is her story. We're going to pull her in. She's the first woman. That's what makes sense. That's who she is. Okay. Kind of understand where I'm going?
So you've got these vague references to her, but you don't have like a solid story yet.
Correct. Yeah. You don't have, they're essentially filling that void with her narrative because they're like, whoa, hold on. We've got inconsistencies and we have to explain those. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Now, the only remaining context of Lilith mentioned in the Bible occurs in Isaiah 34:14, which states, in the Hebrew Bible, it states, quote, "Wild cats shall meet hyenas, goat demons shall greet each other. There too the Lilith shall repose and find herself a resting place." However, I'm just going to give you one synopsis for the New International Version, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the King James Version, and the New American Standard Bible. They all have a variation that sounds like this. Quote, "Desert creatures will meet with hyenas and wild goats will bleat to each other. There, the night creatures will also lie down and find for themselves places of rest." Now, some replace night creatures with screech owl, with night bird. But what I find interesting is, especially in the King James Version, the New American Bible, is that they say the screech owl or the night owl will settle there and will find herself a resting place.
So she is always associated with some sort of foul, basically.
I don't know. Not necessarily foul, more or less kind of flying night creatures, if you will.
Okay.
Darkness, more like creatures of the night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, because the depiction of her in the Sumerian statue, she had the flanked by two owls, and now the owl is being used for her.
And that's how they're backtracking kind of to lay this foundation of where Lilith came from, who Lilith is. These are some of the minor points that you're picking up on that they've picked up on, and they were like, oh, okay, this makes sense here. This makes sense here. So this statue depicting these owls, this must be Lilith.
Okay.
But there's a lot of debate about whether it truly is or isn't, just because they're like, oh, well, that could be another goddess.
Okay.
You know? So these interpretations of the Bible stem from the geography and time period of the text composition. One of those texts is the aforementioned Epic of Gilgamesh, which is notable for containing various themes, plot elements, and characters that correlate to the Hebrew Bible. Most notable are the account of the Garden of Eden, the advice from Ecclesiastes, and a renowned example of the flood narrative, which bears indisputable resemblances to the flood recounted in Genesis 6-9. In both the epic and the Bible, man is created from soil by God and lives in natural setting among the animals. Both men are introduced to a woman who tempts him. In both stories, the man covers his nakedness and must leave his former realm, unable to return. The only difference really is that of the outcome. With Gilgamesh, he is able to give the woman who seduced him his final blessing before he passes. And this is obviously in large contrast to Adam's story and ending. So in consideration of this parallel structure, it becomes sensible that a character originating from the same epic, the Gilgamesh one, such as Lilith, may also make an appearance in the Hebrew Bible. Now, although Lilith is not mentioned in the singular form herself on those Isaiah verses, the Lilitu, which is a singular of the plural form of Lilith as a group, that's what makes the appearance in the Isaiah 34:14. So here with this grouping of Liliths, where they're mentioned, they're always among other detestable beasts of the Edomite desert, giving this fearsome reputation. And this is really kind of what sparked Lilith's transition from ancient Near Eastern folklore into her permanent role in Jewish mythology.
Okay.
And one of the first writings that shows the growing concern for Lilith is an ancient text known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, these scrolls were ancient, mostly Hebrew manuscripts of leather papyrus and copper, first found in 1947 in the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. They held great historical, religious, and linguistic significance because they included the biblical canons, which preserve the evidence of the diversity of religious thought in the late Second Temple Judaism. Now, the term Dead Sea Scrolls usually refers more specifically to manuscripts found in 11 caves near the ruins of Qumran. And the study of these scrolls has enabled scholars to push back the date of a stabilized Hebrew Bible to no later than 70 CE. But now, fragments of almost 950 different scrolls have been found consisting of copies of the Hebrew Bible and sectarian commentary on the Bible. And the Qumran sect was highly engrossed with demonology. So it's no shock that Lilith appears in the Song for a Sage, which is a hymn, which was possibly used in exorcisms. And it goes as follows. It says, quote, "And I, the sage, sound the majesty of his beauty to terrify and confound all the spirits of destroying angels and the bastard spirits, the demons, Lilith, and those that strike suddenly, to lead astray the spirit of understanding and to make desolate their heart." And it's kind of like here too, she is this paradigm of evil who can only be vanquished by God.
Mm-hmm.
So centuries later after this, like these learned rabbis now that are coming, more and more into the fold, taking a drink, they completed the Babylonian Talmud, officially bringing Lilith into the Jewish scholarly world. Now, the Talmud, again, that's the central text of the rabbinic Judaism. And she is mentioned sparsely in different contexts. She is the mother of the demon Hormon or Hormiz, which establishes her in the Jewish scholarly world as the mother of demons. That is how she gets that name.
Okay.
She is described as being winged with long hair and attacks the lonely sleeper. Now, this literature is where her role as a succubus begins to take form. She shares traits with previous Babylonian demonesses like the Ardat Lily, a lustful female who attacks single men, and Labratu, which is a female demon with wild hair that kills children and sucks their blood. A little vampiric, if you will. Well, for those who don't know, a succubus is a demon. This is Ryan's favorite demon, by the way.
Why is everybody always picking on me?
Well, for those who don't know, a succubus is a demon in female form that seeks to have sexual intercourse with sleeping men, which was supposed to result in the birth of witches, demons, and deformed human offspring.
Hang on. Where's this bus?
Fucking 12-year-old. Jesus Christ. Well, she is the mother of all succubae. Okay. Now, on the opposite spectrum of this, Lilith is also said to be the mother of all incubus, which, not just a rock band, but rather the male counterpart to a succubus, which desire to sleep with sleeping females for the same reason. I hate that neither of you laughed at that damn joke because I wrote that, and that was fucking hilarious.
I did laugh. I don't know. I did laugh, but
Ryan's like, you assholes. Just kidding.
I did laugh. I just find Incubus incredibly boring.
Oh, Ryan, we're live, my friend.
Oh, I'm sorry to say that out loud.
Recorded. Damn.
Sorry.
Well, in the Talmud, these writings refer to the sexual danger that Lilith constitutes for men. It says, quote, "It is forbidden to sleep in a house alone, and whoever sleeps in a house alone, a Lilith seizes him." Now, the Talmud also reinforces the use of incantations and amulets against Lilith, who becomes this predatory seductress of men because of all of this scripture about her now. It also proposes a theory of adultery with Adam, sleeping with this unnamed succubus spirit at some point. Following the so what happens with that is basically following the death of Abel and the exile of Cain. Very distraught, Adam secludes himself from Eve. They endured the 130 years apart from one another. And it's during this time that Adam was said to have fathered a host of demonic offspring with an unidentified mother. In the text, the children are actually referred to Lilum, which is a masculinized version of Lilith, which gives way to this relation with Lilith herself.
So she came back with a vengeance after Adam and Eve split up for a little bit.
Pretty much. It's kind of like, oh, you kicked me out, which we're about to get into her actual, because we haven't gotten quite to the text that flushes out her whole story, and we are
Okay.
just about to. So you'll kind of understand like where that comes in. It's like after their separation, Lilith is like, okay, there's my opening, bitches. You know, and she kind of jumps on it. So, but speaking of Lilith's flushed out story, after a few millennium of sparse appearances in ancient Jewish texts, Lilith's story is finally completely fleshed out in 900 CE in a text named the Alphabet of Ben Sira. The Alphabet of Ben Sira is considered a provocative and often misogynistic satirical Hebrew piece of work. Now, despite this, the connection between Lilith and the first Eve seems to have struck a chord with Jewish folks' imagination, and it is now an inevitable part of those traditions. And the story goes as follows. Lilith's full story. I promise I'm not on anything, guys. I swear. It's okay.
You have a lot of big words.
I do. I have a lot of words that I don't use on a daily basis. Well, anyway, so the story goes. I'll tell y'all the story. Y'all sit down and let me open my book real quick.
I'm already sitting.
On the sixth day, we'll just move forward. On the sixth day, some say God created man and woman in his own image and gave charge to Adam in naming every animal. As the animals passed in front of Adam in pairs, Adam, being a 20-something-year-old man, felt jealousy and cried out to God, "Every creature but I has a proper mate," and prayed that God would remedy the situation. It was then that God created Lilith, the first woman, as noted in Genesis 1. From the same clay he had fashioned Adam from, except in this version, he used filth and sediment instead of pure dust to do so, the same way he made Shelley.
You leave me alone. I like my filth.
Oh, Lord. I've been waiting all week to get that one.
I knew one of those was coming at some point. I just didn't know where it was going to be.
Well, from the moment of her creation, Lilith and Adam never found peace. When Adam wished to lie with Lilith, she took offense to the recumbent posture he demanded and stated, quote, "Why must I lie beneath you? We are equal to each other inasmuch as we were both created from the same earth." Now, at this remark, Adam attempted to compel her disobedience by force, which in turn caused Lilith to become rageful. She uttered God's name and rose literally into the air, escaped Eden, and left Adam. Now, this is something in the Jewish community that is a major transgression. His name cannot be uttered without dire consequences, but Lilith does it. And she does it and performs the act with a salty abandon. So she basically like, okay.
She just washes her hands of everything.
Pretty much. She's like, I'm the fuck out of here.
Well,
Adam complains to God. He says, "I've been deserted by my helpmeet," which I hate that word, by the way. And at seeing this, God dispatched the angels Sinoi, Sansonoi, and Semengaloth to bring her back immediately. Now, this trio of angels are three guardian angels in Jewish mythology who are lieutenants of the angel Layla, the angel of the night. And they're charged with protecting newborns from the Lilim, another term for Lilith's offspring, like we just discussed. Well, when these three finally find Lilith, she's on the banks of the Red Sea, which recalls the ancient Hebrew view that water attracts demons. Now, this region was plentiful with lascivious demons, which Lilith herself had borne. And they said, "Return to Adam without delay, or we will drown you." And she says, "How can I return to Adam and live my life, an honest housewife, after my stay by the Red Sea?" And they answered, they said, "It will be death to refuse." Now, according to one story, or one version of the story, she told them she could not return to her first husband because she had already slept with the great demon. And she says, "Besides, how can I die when God has ordered me to take charge of all newborn children, boys up to the 8th day, that is circumcision, girls up to the 12th day?" And she told these angels that she was created only to sicken newborn babies. Well, the angels told her, they said, "Well, we're not going to force you to go back to Adam, but you have to agree to leave the child alone when you see an amulet inscribed with our names and our forms." And she responds and says, quote, "Nevertheless, if I ever see your three names or likeness displayed in an amulet above a newborn child, I promise to spare it." Well, to this, they agreed. But in retaliation for not returning, God punished Lilith by making 100 of her demon children perish daily. And if she could not destroy a human infant, she would spitefully turn against her own. And Lilith ends up 100 demon babies a day. I mean, she bore these children at an exponential rate with allegedly the great demon.
Okay.
Oh, there's a Duggar joke in there somewhere, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Jesus shit. This, guys, episode 94 is when EVP gets canceled. Well, there's
Sorry,
two.
my brain wasn't working fast enough. That's just what popped in there. I'm like, how do? Yeah, never mind.
Well, there's two focus points to this legend. Lilith's position as the original mate of Adam, and her later vocation as destroyer of children. Now, as the other half of Adam, literally the whole Adam must include her. According to the legend, the hermaphroditic androgynous Lilith-Adam union was the original form of humanity. The legend does not say whether it was side by side or back to back. Well, if back to back, as pictured, then Lilith automatically becomes Adam's shadow, and just as automatically something which Adam has to deal with, always there, out of sight, and always to work in tandem. And the reverse, of course, is true of Adam from Lilith's perspective. Now, side by side, the same applies, just not in such a dramatic and literal form. It's obvious in either setup that procreation is not conducive, thus the form is split in two, forming separate male and female counterparts. Now the two can make an effort to unite with each other, and that's where Adam essentially screwed it up when he attempted to dominate. Now, some say he attempted to dominate in the literal sense, sexual position of woman on bottom, man on top, missionary position. Others say that the error was mutual, in which Lilith tried to dominate as much as Adam did. But this legend also takes on a more psychological standpoint, where Adam identified with his own ego and not with his deeper self, which is Lilith, and rejected it, or attempted to confine it to the advance of his ego, and in doing so, he pushed one half of himself away, creating a catastrophic outcome. Well, go ahead.
So that means, hey, dudes, get some therapy.
I feel like this would be a perfect commercial for like BetterHelp, like
if you don't want to create the mother of all demons, make sure you go talk to a therapist.
Jesus Christ. We could write the ad copy right now.
Like, dudes will literally do anything to not go to therapy, including create the mother of all demons.
Yeah, man, go to therapy. It's okay to do so.
Fine.
Well,
if she just listen. I got you. Listen.
Yeah, don't ever say that, dudes.
Yeah,
never. No. Well, regardless of which way you look at it, while Lilith is out gallivanting with the great demon, we now see the contradictory statements in Genesis 2, in which Eve, the mother of all living, is brought into the picture, forged from a rib of Adam. At first, though, she is merely woman, or Isha, as Adam was to her Ish. The biblical text directly speaks of her being an extension of man. What's interesting about this is that the English pairing woman-man mirrors this. Scripture then continues with the image of man cleaving to woman as one flesh, and in other words, it's recreating the original Adam-Lilith androgyny. Well, story goes, Isha is forged from Isha's rib closest to the heart, the biblical seed of will, emotions, and the soul. Personal and intimate. And in tactile terms, Ryan's never going to make it through these next two lines. And in tactile terms, even more intimate than the genitals. Because the act of touching another's breast is one of the closest emotional bonds between two people. Take it away, Ryan.
You said breast.
We have to let it get it out, people, or we're never going to make it through this damn story.
It's one of those things.
What do you mean it?
Yeah, you kind of have to let the steam out of the tea kettle, or he'll explode. So you just got to give him his moments.
Yeah. Well, it is here that we see God giving Adam another half of himself, but this time when the rib is taken, it's done in secrecy while Adam is in a deep sleep, so that Adam does not realize that Eve is yet another Lilith. Because according to legend, God has not just failed once, but twice before this third attempt when Eve finally came along. I heard a sigh, Ryan. Sorry.
No, okay. I'd say Lilith 2 Electric Boogaloo.
And there was the explosion. We didn't catch him in time.
we didn't let him get it all out, people. We didn't let him get it all out. It's okay. It's okay. Well, some scholars believe that the creation of Eve from Adam's rib is a myth created to establish male supremacy and disguise Eve's divinity. They point to another story for this theory, and is in an ancient painting which shows the naked god Anath poised in the air watching her lover Mot murder his twin Elian. Mot, mistaken by the mythographer as Yahweh or God, was driving a curved dagger under Elian's fifth rib, not trying to remove a sixth. And this depiction, some agree, would be the origin story of the rib narrative in the creation. And the second focal point of Lilith narrative is the difference between her offspring versus that of Eve. Lilith bears demons. Eve bears humans, but it's in the way both of them conceive these offspring. And here goes Ryan again. Lilith's conception is by sex that is nominally unfruitful. Male autoeroticism, unpartnered. There is no mutuality to it. It is simply for the sake of pleasing one's ego. It is the male complement of the whore. And Lilith becomes this repository and incubator of the male sexual drive that cannot be satisfied by normal means. We're pausing for effect. Okay, Ryan's good. Whereas
I'm listening.
Just fucking with you, man.
Yeah.
We got to make light of it, dude.
I can make dick jokes. I can also be intellectual. You know this. I'm listening.
Yeah, the dick jokes just happen a lot more often. Whereas
You said meat.
Whereas Eve is impregnated by sex that is procreative in the normal partnered way, which sets Lilith out to want to destroy her rival's offspring. Well, if we go back to this narrative that Lilith is the deeper self and Adam the ego, then the ego represses and drives into the deeper self what it deems illegitimate and what it cannot accept. Therefore, what happens is that what is repressed rebounds on the ego in what we deem as demonic, wiping out what we deem as acceptable and legitimate. In other words, the offspring of Eve. Long story short, had the ego not rejected, or Adam not rejected its own products, what would result is the harmonization between the illegitimate and the legitimate, not destroying the remaining offspring. And we see this in what's to come next in Lilith's story with the fall of humanity and the expulsion from Eden, because in rabbinic literature, Lilith is variously depicted as the mother of Adam's demonic offspring following his separation from Eve, which we just previously discussed about the 130-year separation. But the question still remains: if woman was created from Adam after this initial creation, then what happened to the female created first? Because that still freaking remains. We still don't have an answer for it. Well, as it may be surmised, the rabbinic sources do not paint Lilith in a favorable light, although Adam does not come off too well either. They were content to see her as filling out that biblical picture and as the archetype of the bad woman. And during medieval Kabbalah, Lilith became a figure of cosmic evil. The treatise of left emanation solidified Lilith as the consort to Samael, likely inspiring later such depictions in the Zohar. Scholars credit this treatise with being the first to present a comprehensive concept of evil, bearing a striking resemblance to that found in Gnosticism. And in the treatise, Samael and Lilith emanated together from beneath the throne of glory as a result of the sin of the first humans in the Garden of Eden. On the side of evil, they correspond to the holy divine male and female. They are complete opposites of that. It states that she dwells in the cities of the seas at the end of the day, and at the end of the days, God will make her dwell in the ruins of Rome. Like, that's where they put her. This is the light that Lilith is now being cast in.
Okay.
Now, because we're about to have the book of Zohar start coming together, because in the book of Zohar, it brings in another spin of the biblical tale of creation by incorporating Adam, Lilith, and Eve with the origin story. That was thought to have been written around 1300 CE in Spain by Moses de Leon, the book of Zohar. And it serves as the foundational literature of Jewish mystical thought known as Kabbalah. And it's here that we see another retelling of Lilith's story to help better explain her defiance of God. In interpretive fashion, as they always do. In order to do this, Kabbalistic writers sought to answer this uncertainty by representing her in the Zohar as a domineering entity with a power comparable to God. So we see her elevated from this minor folklore spirit to the goddess of the underworld at this point. It's kind of like they have feared her this long. She's going to kill babies and harm pregnant women. And then bam, all of a sudden, she's now reigning supreme. Further expanding on this goddess of the underworld, the Zohar goes further into the explanation of who the great demon is mentioned in the alphabet of Ben Sira. He is renamed from great demon to Samael, which ultimately pushes Lilith from goddess of the underworld to queen of the underworld through their copulation. And Samael is the equivalent to the Christian figure of Satan and the devil. And now he's been given a wife. So in Hebrew lore, Samael is the prince of demons, and he is known as the venom or poison of God and executioner of death sentences decreed by God, and is first mentioned in the book of Enoch as an accuser, seducer, and destroyer. Now, depending on tradition, Samael can be seen as a falling angel or an angel who is still loyal to divine law but enforces the darker side of faith, and in some circles is considered to be the embodiment of corruption and amorality. Most often, Samael is interpreted as the real name of Lucifer, but concerning different traditions and lore, these two are actually separate entities. Samael is under God's rule, seen as God's rage, and Lucifer being the fallen angel that was cast into hell. Lucifer is a form in Latin name referring to the planet Venus, and it's associated with the falling of the morning star from heaven, hence the name. And the terms devil and Satan, those can be translated from Greek and Hebrew, respectively, to mean accuser or adversary. So think of those as merely titles, as whereas like Lucifer is the name of the ultimate demonic entity that reigns over hell.
Okay.
Well, Samael is associated so much with the Ides of Lucifer, which is why he is also thought to be a fallen angel, but he is not always necessarily considered to be evil. One of his most important roles in Jewish lore is that of the angel of death. He is believed to be the consort of Lilith, with whom he creates a host of demon children, including a son, Sariel, all of which populate hell. Well, God feared Samael and Lilith would plague the world with their progenies so much that he castrated the corrupt angel. And Samael often appears in the story of the Garden of Eden as well, being the one who planted the tree of knowledge. And once he did, God became angry with him and cast him out of Eden. And in retaliation, Samael becomes the serpent, tempting Eve with an apple, ensuring Adam and Eve are thrown out of the Garden of Eden, and ultimately seducing and impregnating Eve with Cain, who would go on to commit an act of murder. And it's said that those children born from the corrupt and demonic incubus or succubus turn out to be just that, murderers. Well, Lilith's promotion to this extreme position, the personification of all evil, she is now God's opposite, allowing her to refuse, challenge, and negotiate God's orders. And this explains her confident attitude, and in doing so, reveals her to be a very powerful force of feminism. Well, the Zohar also gives us an alternative origin story for Lilith as well, which revolves around the creation of the sun and the moon. The sun being masculine, the moon being feminine, they are representative of the two sexes, and they're therefore an analogy of human creation. God created both luminaries simultaneously, mirroring the creation in Genesis 1, but the moon is known as the lesser light, dependent on the sun to light the night sky. And ultimately, the moon becomes jealous over the sun, and from this oppression and resentment, the spirit of Lilith is born. Now, although this kind of deviates from Lilith's position as the first woman, it does remain constant with the theme of feminism.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this retelling of her origin story places her back in the psychological light, being representative of sensual desires in men and the unconscious sexual power of women. So this helps to elevate her yet again into a symbol of feminine strength, unawakened and ever present in each woman. And it's also in the Zohar that Lilith's demonic sexuality comes to the forefront. She attempts to seduce men and use their seed for masturbation and nocturnal emissions to create bodies for her demonic children. She is the seductive harlot who leads men astray, but when they turn to her, she transforms into the angel of death and kills them. Now, the Zohar recommends the performance of a special ritual before sexual intercourse before husband and wife, in which the husband should turn his mind to God and say, quote, "Veiled in velvet, are you there? Loosen, loosen be your spell. Go not in and go not out. Let there be none of you and nothing of your part." I found that kind of interesting.
Mecca lecca high, Mecca hiney ho.
Jesus Christ, Ryan. Dear God Almighty. We should just kick Ryan off right now. It's fine. It's totally fine. Shelly and I can finish it out. We're good. We don't need you. No, it's good. Thank you, Brittany, for playing along. Oh my God.
I will tell you something I found interesting in what you said just a second ago about the embodiment of feminism and how the moon and the sun. That's very interesting because Shakespeare also makes a reference to the sun and the moon balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet, whenever he says, "Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who's already sick and pale with grief." So there's also like they kind of have that inferior superiority,
Right.
going parallel as well. I just thought that was interesting. It's the first thing that popped into my head when we were saying that. I'm going, oh, okay. So the parallel, because in that story, you have the two warring factions, and both of these are pawns, and so Lilith very much is a pawn in this celestial game. So,
well, Brian, I commend you for making it through that last little bit without laughing like a 12-year-old. Commend you
he
very
was
much.
tempted. He was
tempted. He was tempted. He heard masturbation. He was like, well, having escaped Eden after refusing. Go ahead, Ryan. Here it
No,
comes.
no, you're fine. Go ahead. No, do your thing.
While having escaped Eden after refusing to submit to Adam, Lilith has taken on her renowned role as baby stealer and mother of all demons, but she is not done yet. In some variations of the story, Lilith actively participates in the temptation of Adam and Eve and therefore in their expulsion from the Garden of Eden. Some, though often late sources, say that Lilith returned to the garden after her fall in the guise of a serpent, causing Adam and Eve to eat the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. So in this version of it, she is the serpent, not Samael.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be some, quote, evidence behind this, if you will, through Renaissance paintings depicting the fall of man, in which a female is clearly in the painting of the as the serpent. But we're going to take a closer look at Michelangelo's painting Fall and Expulsion from Garden of Eden, which was finished in 1512 CE. And from that, we can kind of gather the following. Michelangelo depicts Lilith as a creature not fully human, nor fully animal. Although her torso resembles that of a human female, her two legs are serpentine in nature. Additionally, Michelangelo paints her in the center of the entire depiction, placing much more focus on her than the actual protagonist of the story of the fall. Lilith's two serpentine tails are coiled tightly around the tree of knowledge, and although they can only be seen from the perspective Michelangelo paints the scene from, it's not in line with Adam and Eve's line of sight. Lilith lures Adam and Eve into a sense of trust with her humanly figure. Perhaps the most astounding observation of all is the shocking absence of the red apple, or any fruit at all for that matter, from the tree of knowledge, which is the central cause of Adam and Eve's expulsion from the Garden of Eden. Lilith can be seen passing something to Eve or just reaching out to take her hand, but it is unclear. It's curious to see that such a central factor in the story of Adam and Eve's eviction is missing from the very ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. It is almost as if Michelangelo wanted to put the blame entirely on Lilith. Well, another deviation from the original biblical tale, Adam reaches towards the tree of knowledge first. Instead of Eve coaxing Adam to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge, it is Adam who makes the first contact with the tree. Another interesting observation, Lilith and Adam resemble each other while Eve is shown to be more different. Adam and Lilith have the same hair color, and this fact matches kind of perfectly with Genesis 1:27, where God created male and female, quote, in his own image. Now, Eve, on the other hand, has been created from Adam's rib, explaining the difference in her appearance. Now, it's argued that some of these depictions are of Lilith in multiple paintings. However, it doesn't really hold a lot of weight on the paintings alone, because the story of Lilith is Jewish tradition. The artworks depicting a female serpent are almost always medieval Christians. Now, there's no historical writings to say that the story of Lilith was well known in Christian circles. The only possible explanation to this is in the Testament of Solomon, in which a female demon curiously identical to Lilith is mentioned under the name Abizu. Abizu was to blame for miscarriages and infant mortality and was said to be motivated by envy, as she herself was infertile. Well, the reason the serpent is depicted as female in these paintings is to identify it with Eve. Art historians argue that the serpents look identical to Eve in the paintings because women were perceived by Renaissance audiences as weak, gullible, and inherently flawed, making them the ideal scapegoat. Because you see, if Adam, a man, was tempted by Eve, a woman who herself was tempted by a serpent, had it been a man, then the blame ultimately comes back to the male sex for the fall of man. But change the serpent to a woman and voila, then woman is ultimately to blame. And we all know what happened after that. You know, the fruit's eaten. God basically says, hey, pack your shit, get the hell out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's a longer explanation of that, I'm sure, but that's my condensed Cliff Note version of it.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, now after Adam's reconciliation with Eve, Lilith assumes this queenship of demons. Some versions placing her back in the arms of Samael, and other versions leaving her unpartnered. Well, as queen of the demons, she is said to slaughter infants in their cribs, which I think could possibly actually be an old wives' tale for the explanation of what we now know to be sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS.
Right.
But there is a limit to Lilith's power, however. It's when the child undergoes the initiation of a bris, as we know it. And that's the act of an infant boy being circumcised, which typically takes place around the 8th day. And this act symbolizes two traditions. It's being sealed into the covenant and coming under the protection of God. And by the marking of its member, the child becomes a member of the community, so to speak, and in doing so, thwarts the power of Lilith over the child to steal him away. Now, in Germanic lands, the Jewish community developed the custom of the watch night, which is a semi-magical vigil around the crib on the night preceding the performance of the bris. A ring is drawn in charcoal on the wall of the birth room, and inside it were written the words Adam and Eve out Lilith. Also, the names Sinoi, Sansonoi, and Semengaloth were inscribed on the door, which obviously, again, the angel she struck the deal with. Now, if Lilith nevertheless succeeded in approaching the child and fondling him, he would laugh in his sleep. And to avert danger, it was held wise to strike the sleeping child on the lips with one finger, whereupon Lilith would vanish. I don't really know how that completely makes her go away, but we'll go with it.
All right.
So, and it's the act of circumcision that puts Lilith back into her proper place as part of the child's own self. It's a whole nother psychological thing as well, too. But there's one other area that Lilith herself is actually seen in. And Shelley, you know this as well. She cements her place in vampiric lore, either as the first and most powerful demon. Well, she is considered a demon. Powerful vampire, or at least their queen. Now, the origins of the vampire as a mythological creature are not really known for certain, but Lilith's story and creation is regarded as having great significance since it places the vampire's creation at the same time as humankind. And they point to believers in vampires in the vampire community, point to Genesis 1:28, which states, quote, God blessed them and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. But as we previously learned, Lilith rebelled against the duties of womanhood and wifehood with such demonic glee that her body took on the form of a succubus, that hideous winged demon that fed off the life force of others, making her the first vampire, which would make her offspring the first race of vampire.
Which are considered demonic.
Which are considered demonic. And it's the fact that she lures these young men, gives us this idea that she gets to choose her offspring for which to turn, as it is said that these young men were turned into incubi after copulating with succubus, and their children will end up being the same. In other words, a demon. And she is sometimes referred to as Dracula's daughter, and has also enjoyed spotlight cameos in modern culture as well, with TV shows like True Blood, Raise the Roof, Supernatural, and
Raise the
Lucifer.
Roof. Raise the Roof. I don't know. You started it. I was just going to go along with it.
I know. I'm a True Blood fan. I can't help it. I'm all about the True Blood. Sucky. Don't get me started. I'll be here all night. I love True Blood. Well, Lilith enjoyed something of a revival in literature beginning in the mid-19th century. What is remembered most fondly about Lilith from the Alphabet of Ensira onward is she is a literary manifestation of women's battle for equality. Typically, it's the feminine dark side that she represents, which is the part that men subliminally fear. Ryan, is that true? Do you fear it? Do you fear it, Ryan? Ryan, do you fear it?
No.
Are you sure?
Are you sure? Ryan's like, no, I'm all about it. I'll go investigate it. Not a problem.
I've been called somewhat of an explorer.
Oh God, we're not even going there. We're going to shut down 12-year-old Ryan right now. We're going to shut him down.
Put away the map, Dora. You just sit there, all right?
Jesus Christ. Well, she's been embraced by many modern, particularly Jewish feminists. She's presented as the proto-feminist, willing to sacrifice even the paradise of Eden as the necessary cost of freedom for freedom and equality. Her role as a succubus, baby stealer, seducer of men, it's all downplayed or at least assigned to a patriarchal layer of the tradition. Her story has now been retold, wiping out her copulation with the great demon, and as such never gains the title of Queen of the Underworld. It's been retold in such a way that her demonic aspects were simply man trying to control an unruly woman by defamation of character, since her story was compiled solely by men. Some neo-pagan groups have taken up her cause as well, either accepting her dark nature as part of a larger sacred reality or finding the erotic goddess within after removing the clutter of what they argue are patriarchal and monotheistic condemnations. Modern feminists have truly painted her in the light of une femme ideal, drawing particularly on her spurning of Adam's attempted dominance and trying to establish her presence among the planets. And they really kind of have reclaimed Lilith as a symbol of autonomy, independence, and sexual liberation. Well, in 1972, Lily Rivlin published an article on Lilith for the feminist magazine Miss, with the aim of recovering her for the contemporary woman. Lilith is the woman society cannot control. She represents the fears of how attraction to others can ruin a marriage, or of how risky childbearing and raising children is. She is She is the one who determines her own sexual partners and does not have the natural consequences of sexual activity, aka children. Not saying that they're all, consequences. Some are nice. It's a blessing. We get it. Not talking about your children, okay? Just trying to lighten the mood, man. Y'all are a little bit heavy right now. Damn.
Yeah, they're a blessing. Blah, blah, blah.
Hey, I love children. I don't have any of my own, but I got plenty of nieces and nephews. I just love them because I get to send them back to their mom and dad at the end of the day.
Bingo.
Well, Lilith is wild and unkempt and presents an antitype to desired human sexuality and family life. The contemporary feminist movement found inspiration in Lilith as the uncontrollable woman and decided to change her image from demon to powerful woman. The Jewish feminist magazine Lilith took her name in 1976 and in an introductory issue rejected her appearance as a demon. In the late 20th century, women began to adopt this Lilith myth as their own and began identifying with her, including contemporary music by women highlighted in the Lilith Fair. Now, to this day, many feminists, as well as practitioners of goddess worship, cite Lilith as a sole figure in Judeo-Christian lore that stood up to the assigned gender roles and fought to be an individual. And it is for this very reason that her story has been written out of the Bible, and the original sin now belongs to Eve for experiencing temptation and curiosity, which led to disobedience. Lilith is a dramatic and dark figure predating even Judaism itself and stemming from a class of Mesopotamian demons that haunt deserts and lonely places, swooping down to infect those that they attack with their poison. The ancient authors of the text go on to tell us that Lilith is a, quote, smooth-tongued alien and an evil woman attacking pregnant women and infants and known for her sexual harassment of young men. The evil she threatened, especially against women and children, needed to be counteracted. So it's no wonder you've never heard of her full story, as most of it's been written out of existence fully at this point, with only small pinpoints of references being made. But the question is, was it truly her evil or the fact that she refused to be subservient? Because the battle between Lilith and Adam is one of matriarch versus patriarch. It is a story of the feminist revolt against the man, put into place to control the unruly, the undesirable, and namely women. She seeks justice and equality and wishes to control her own destiny, her fate, and sex. She is ridiculed and punished for such wishes because who is she to seek justice and equality and dare to go against the status quo? It's no wonder that her story resonates so strongly with women today and those who respect women. Lilith was demonized for merely speaking her mind, but she is free and dares to be sensual and sexual. She is every man's fantasy and every man's curse, a haunting, dreamlike presence who threatens to shake loose the foundation of society. And yes, she is woman.
There you go. How much did you know about Lilith before then?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot. Want to know what I actually tried to look up? I'm not gonna lie. So when you go to look up Lilith and you go to look at like I started by just typing in like demonic entity Lilith. Let me tell you something. There's not a whole lot that pops up about her. It is the same exact article over and over and over again. It's just restating. I was lucky to find a research paper that was written about her and a whole website that's actually dedicated to her called Lilith Through the Times. That's where I pulled a lot of my stuff from.
Oh, nice.
And so finding out a lot of these things where it's like, in my head, I was under the myth of queen of the underworld, goddess of the underworld, huge, massive demonic woman. I knew that there was this whole lore that she was Adam's first wife. But once I started digging into this, my standpoint on it was like, holy shit, wait a minute. This isn't at all what I thought it was. She is a woman that just basically asked the question, why I gotta be on bottom?
Right.
Why I gotta be laying on my back? Because the whole thing was, I didn't really go too far into it. She didn't want to be on her back because it was demeaning. She was laying on the bare earth, the bare ground, where all the other
came from,
where all the other detestable animals laid, and shared that area. She didn't want to be on the ground. She wanted to be on top, literally, in sexual position.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
And oh Lord, I knew that was going to come out somewhere.
So, quick question, because I'm with you. Like I love a strong woman, and I think that like you were talking about, like the patriarchal structure of religion and the patriarchal the winners write history, and they tried to stamp her out and tried to stamp her out of everything because and what did survive just goes it is allegorical for being like, see, if you act like Lilith, this is going to happen to you. You'll get cast out of paradise, and you'll do, So I'm with you on that. But the question I do have, and I don't remember if you covered this or not.
Okay.
What happens to the children of Adam that Lilith kills? Do they also become demons, or do they?
I actually did not find an answer on that. All that I was told was that she resented Eve so much in this lore that she set off to kill her rival's children. That was about it. I could not find anything about what happened to them when they died.
They were considered humans with a soul, and therefore they went to heaven, did whatever, because they were human children. They weren't demonic children. They were basically victims. Again, the whole thought process of her being the killer of children, the harmer of children, that's kind of where it comes from. She's harming innocence. Because they were human children, they should have, in theory, ascended to heaven and found their final place and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do want to point out that, Brian, your 12-year-old ism, your mom just heard you say that you like women on top. Anyways.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, sweet Melissa.
Oh, sweet Melissa, I am so sorry.
There's a lot of things I like you don't know about. You don't need to know about.
Listen, if you're one of our family members and tune in week after week, you are going to hear things you don't want to. Sorry, I just had to point that out for you. Just I want to see you uncomfortable on camera. I think it would be great. But no, anyways, I didn't find anything about the children that was killed. Thank you, Shelley, for answering that. But what I did actually try and dig into is that whole line where it says that God didn't just fail once, but twice before Eve was created. I also tried to find out what happened to that third woman, and there's every article I read, her story is she was created. He rejected her again because she was the one that. So what really happened? I kind of left her out. She didn't really progress the little story, but I'll fill it in now. When the second woman in this lore and legend was created, Adam was awake. Adam watched as God put bone to bone and muscle and flesh and all this stuff and build this woman up, put hair on her and everything. And he basically was like, that's fucking disgusting. I didn't need to see all that. She's gross to me now. And so, God essentially in this lore and legend was like, oh shit, I screwed up again.
Was like, okay.
Bitch. That's the way he kind of comes off in some of these, that's the different variations of the stories.
Well, and that's why in the third attempt to create a woman, he's put into a deep sleep so that his the alleged sixth rib could be removed to create the woman. So, but I could not find. Sorry, to finish my thought. I could not find anything on that third woman because everything that I read about her, all it said, her ending was literally every line in every article was, "What happened to her? Nobody knows."
Okay. That is very interesting. And like I was saying earlier, I do find it very interesting that Eve ends up becoming the paragon of what a woman should be, submissive and, do everything the husband, but then literally the other woman is literally demonized for even suggesting that she'd be equal to man.
Yeah.
And
you can see what theme this whole story takes on. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand.
So they had to stamp it out, and literally demonize her. Right. So they could be like, no, you need to be like Eve. You don't need to be like Lilith. Look what happened to her. But Eve, look at where Eve is now.
She's free. Yeah. Right. Yeah, don't be like Lilith. Freedom. Yes. I'm like, no ring on it, baby. Ain't no ring. No.
So, but the more important question is, Ryan, between Lilith, the queen of the underworld, and Satan's mistress that's on the screen with us right now, who would win?
I don't know. I'm going to go. I will go with Lilith because Lilith has been around a lot longer and she might have some tricks up her sleeve.
She's been around the block a few times.
I respect that answer. Always go with wisdom. Yes. Always go with wisdom.
I'm going to go with Shelley because Shelley likes to play psychological warfare. So
Dude, Lilith invented psychological warfare. What are you talking about?
So I
but at some point, the student becomes the teacher.
I don't know. I just think Shelley as Satan's mistress could outtake Queen of the Underworld for damn sure.
Yeah, because always be the girlfriend, never the wife.
See, this is the most important part of this episode: is who could beat whom. That screw the rest of the story that I just spent an hour talking about. It's could Shelley beat Lilith? That's all we care about.
Is it a drinking contest? I bet I win.
I don't know, but I could set y'all up in a mud wrestling pit and probably sell tickets and make some money for us.
Wrestling? I don't like to get dirty. Yuck. No.
Brittany, you're in the green room. You're writing that down, right? You're making notes. All right, cool. No, so yeah, my whole thing is like my mind shifted in the midst of all this, where it was just like, wow, this woman, because y'all know how I feel about powerful women. I love women in history that have held these high roles, these high places in society, in legends and lore. And so reading into her, I was like, oh shit, yeah, we're gonna go down this Lilith route because she is the ultimate baddies, and when it comes to women. And it's like, wow, was I ever kind of like wrong? She was literally this woman that just said, yo, hey, we the same. And Adam was like, no, we're not. Get the hell out. And she was like, screw you, I'm out on my own. And
she's like, deuces.
She went and did her own thing and went and got her a new boyfriend that appreciated her.
And was a lot more fun and threw better parties.
That's right.
She moved to the city with her new friends.
Yes. My new boyfriend.
What are your thoughts, Ryan? I mean, do you think that, is it something that you didn't think, like her story, completely different than what you thought?
Yeah, I'd only ever known her to be a demon. I did not know the depths of the depths that people went to literally demonize this person.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's nothing wrong with a strong woman. Women are your equals, and if you don't think that, hit the bricks. So
Ryan's single right now, and he's trying to pick up a date. That's what it is.
Even if I wasn't single, I've only ever dated strong women.
Just messing with you, man. Ryan's like, Tinder hasn't been working out. I'm just going to take this Lilith episode and try and get me a girlfriend. It's okay.
Shut the fuck up.
Shelley, what say you though on Lilith?
She is a story that fascinates me, and again, those of you that do know how many religion classes I had to take when I was in college, because I did go to a private religious school. This is one that I had a very fantastic religion professor that we actually debated this one day in class. And when Blake was kind of running some of the stuff by me, I was like, don't forget that she's alleged to be the serpent in the Garden of Eden. He goes, oh, I found that. I go, great. I said, Joe, how about the thing about the vampires, that she's the mother of all vampires because she's the mother of all demonic? And he was like, now I read something. I'm like, go dig that a little bit deeper. This is one that's debated because a lot of biblical scholars will try to gloss over the fact that there was a potential that the deity may have made a mistake, or perhaps that there was not a mistake, just Adam was too much of a little whiny butt to go with God's plan. So God went, oh God, okay, why did I have a child? Obviously he's already causing problems. I could have stuck with the dog. He just barks, now I got this thing going, I didn't get what I wanted. So he has to, wad up that piece of paper and throw it away. We're going to try again. We're going to try and give you a better pacifier because obviously baby isn't happy, So there's a lot of debate in that, and I'm sure what I just said just pissed everybody off, but that's okay. We're debating here. That he's
I say after the third time, God was like, "Oh, Adam, I swear to me, if you make me do this one more time,
I swear to me, I swear to me."
That's right.
I swear to me.
Yeah.
Oh God, right.
He's like, do you want to be smoked, boy? I'm about to smoke you. You're going to take this. You're going to be happy with it.
This is it.
Yeah.
It's just the part where Ryan's like, I swear to me, Ryan. Or Adam.
So yeah, the debate on this, and it is thought that, again, just like Ryan had said before, the winners write the history books, and being that it has always been a relatively male-dominated society, pretty much from word go. The hunters and the gatherers. The men are the hunters, bigger, stronger, faster, based on their role in the society. that they need to be in control. That's the patriarchal societal structure.
Right.
So whenever you do have a female that goes, don't need you, that tends to piss alpha males off when an alpha female steps in and says, walk your path and I'll walk mine. And we don't ever have to walk on the same one.
You
And
know,
it's okay with me. But there's no reliance on
Mhm.
that male figure. And for some males, they need a woman who needs them.
Mhm.
No, thank you.
I mean, what it boils down to is an ancient case of small weenie syndrome, basically.
Oh Lord, Ryan. I mean, could you imagine like the parties that she probably would have thrown for him?
Oh,
if
you
he
know,
would
she
just
had
let her be on
epic
top?
parties. Yeah. It'd be like, oh, it only gets better from here, honey.
It
You know
only
the phrase,
gets-
if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy? Make mama happy. You
No,
want
I
steak?
just-
I can make steak.
I think ultimately, like once you start looking at everything from like the Mesopotamian region on all the way to today's feminist, liberation, feminine liberate, all that stuff, female liberation movement, that it's interesting, like Ryan said earlier, how much they went through just to freaking make this woman a demon in the eyes of everybody. I mean, it's like they flesh her out from one little line in the Epic of Gilgamesh to getting all the way to the Zohar, where she's cosmic evil, and it's like all
The
because
queen of the damned and queen of hell.
all because there was a contradiction within the Hebrew text that they needed to explain, that people were questioning even back then. They were like, oh, we got an answer for it. She's cosmic evil. Her name is Lilith. Here you go. It was the first screw up, essentially, as they're trying to write it.
Yeah.
And, she was too unruly. So she just went on and, she was too evil. So.
And then they pretty much all but banished her from the texts.
Yep.
So, depending on if you are a believer in the literal word of the Bible, again, my question becomes, which Bible?
Right.
What version? Because they
Right.
are different. Or if you are a believer that it is tales and stories that are designed to teach you how to be a better person. It's a guidebook of how to live your life so that you are living as a better human being. Some of y'all could use that lesson right now, just saying. But it
mute her mic. Mute her mic.
No,
Mute
it's
her. No,
fine.
just kidding.
No, it just depends on how you interpret it, if you interpret it, if you believe it, if you do not. But know this, that there is always someone, and it's usually the person who says, I don't want to walk that way. I want to go this way. That's usually how they become basically an enemy to the emperor.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And she became an enemy to the emperor by not doing what she was told. And I got to tell you, people get tired of being bossed around. She just got fed up with it before anybody else did. So,
well, we had a comment that said, speaking of small weenie syndrome, did you see the painting? No wonder Adam had dominance issues.
Michelangelo was not kind to him in that painting.
Just like can you imagine what he thought? Like, I love that meme that goes around where it's like Michelangelo gets the offer to paint the Sistine Chapel, and he looks up, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna paint a bunch of dicks on your ceiling, dude. Like, well, y'all, final thoughts on Lilith? I think we've pretty much kind of said it, so to speak.
Pretty much. I mean, it's just the demonization of strong women, and women are equal to you no matter what you think. And if you don't think that way, I suggest you you become celibate and go away.
there's a deeper meaning to the story that y'all may not have realized.
What's
that just let women be on top sometimes, guys. My God, lay down and enjoy it.
Yeah, come on now.
That is the whole moral of the story. Reverse cowgirl is a really fun position.
You're telling me.
I'm just saying. Shelly's like, when are we getting off here? When are we getting off here?
But final thoughts though is Lilith was literally demonized. I think that a lot can be learned from the entire story as a whole, and you have to look at the whole story and not just what you've been told.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Good final thoughts, Ryan.
What do you got, Shelly?
I'm waiting for y'all to get done.
No, I'm waiting for that magical cue from Shelley.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. No, I think that on the whole, that if you delve into her story, she is fascinating, and obviously she was intimidating enough to try and to be erased from the books of knowledge, books of learning, books of history, and again, winners write the history books, and so you usually erase the power of your enemy, and so to have someone stand up and say, "I don't like this," ooh, as a king would say, was off with their head, and they tried to erase her. But fortunately, we always seem to find our way back. Blake?
Yes, Shelley?
Do you have a final thought, or would you like me to go ahead and throw you the outro?
I have already given all of my final thoughts. It is more important to let a woman ride on top. That is the moral of the story. Just let her do it, and you won't have a Lilith on your hands.
Blake, why don't you tell them everything they need to know?
All right, it's time for our announcements and shout-outs really quick. If you have not taken time to vote in our current poll on Facebook, make sure you go and do it. Poll is going to close at 6 p.m. on 8/18. We are letting you decide which two of us will investigate solo at our next two locations. The catch is you're not going to know where we are going until we get there, but we promise it is going to be huge and worth it. That might have been what Lilith was thinking. That might have been what Lilith was thinking. Anyways, runner-up is going to get the first location, and first place will get the most infamous location. So make sure you go and vote with that. I do believe that Shelley right now is in the lead with Ryan, a very close runner-up. The tables have turned. Shelley was in second for quite some time.
Thanks, friends.
I have been in third place for about however many days we've been running this now. So, and Brittany is breathing a sigh of relief because I don't think there's any way she's going to get pushed into second at least. So
hey, let's up those numbers, guys.
I agree.
Those numbers way up.
Blake's only mentioning it because he would like you to go and vote for him. Please do that.
Go vote. Go vote.
And on our second note, our online merchandise.
What?
Are you having a stroke? Are you okay?
I might be. Would you let me get through this closing?
Online merchandise.
And we might as well just say goodnight.
Our online merchandise store is now open. Our producer, Brittany, is going to throw the link up into the comments right now. So make sure you go and check that out after the conclusion of the episode. Make sure you follow our Eventbrite page so you can be notified when tickets for events go on sale. We are currently sold out of everything, and we just put one up like last Tuesday. So if you want to get tickets, make sure you're following us on the Eventbrite pages for those public investigations. However, we may have a ticket come available at a moment's notice, so be on the lookout for that announcement. I haven't even told the group that yet. We're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to post our Linktree link up on a Facebook page tomorrow. This is going to have all the links to get you where you need to go, including all of our social channels. Make sure you're following us across the board. Stay up to date on all the exclusive and tailored content we have coming to specific channels later this year. Our Linktree link will also take you to our Patreon page, which is just $5 a month. And with that, you instantly get to stream well over 100 Patreon exclusive videos. And that's continuing to grow every week. That includes our pre- and post-broadcast Paracon speaking events, exclusive video casts, and behind-the-scene moments. We are still in the planning phase of expanding that content you will be able to receive from our Patreon page, and that price is not going to change. So you're going to get even more exclusive content from us for the exact same amount you pay now. And we are now offering 7-day free trials for our Patreon page for those of you who are weary about just right out joining. So go and make sure you check it out. It is a load of laughs and a lot of fun. And as always, any questions, comments, or stories you'd like to share with us, those can be submitted to us at the evppod@gmail.com. That is THEEVPPOD@gmail.com.
Like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that little button up there to subscribe and like us on YouTube. I got it right this week.
You got it right this time. Well, y'all, we thank y'all so much for joining us for another weekly episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. For myself, my name is Blake Smith. My partners in the paranormal, Miss Shelley Pruitt, Mr. Ryan Roberts, and we thank our producer, Brittany, in the green room for pushing all the buttons and making us look fantastic on screen for you. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday. Bye, y'all.